Good morning. And in today's video, I wanted to talk a little bit about counting atoms and to go through several of the guided practice parts. Now, there are several parts to this practice page. And so I'm only going to go over the first few examples to give you guys some guided practice that will help you. So you're probably going to want to pause this video when we go through each of the different parts. So if you watch part one and then do some examples, pause it, and then go to group two, pause it, and then go on to group three. So let me go through some of these examples. So the first part here, we're just going to be counting the atoms that make up each of the compounds. And so the easiest way to do that is you can see I have the formula written there. And so I'm just going to write out each element and then we're going to count those atoms. The first one would be magnesium. And I can see there are one of the magnesium atoms. And then the chlorine, I can see there's that little subscript there. So there's going to be two of those. So the total number of atoms is going to be 3. Let's go to the next one. The next one, I can see there's a hydrogen. And then there's that subscript there. So there are 2 of those. The sulfur, there's only 1 of those because there is no subscript. And then my oxygen, I can see there's a subscript of 4 there. So there's going to be 4 of those. So 2 added to 1 added to 4 is going to be a total of 7 atoms for that one. So again, you might want to go ahead and pause it right now and then work through the other examples there in part 1. And then once you get to the bottom there, you can click on that link or use that the QR code, or you can just type in that URL and that'll take you to the page where you can use to kind of check your answers on that and see how you did. Here on the next one, I'm going to write out the molecule of each of these and we'll work on those. So for guided practice part 2, you can see now I've added coefficients. And so that changes things a little bit because that coefficient applies to everything after it. So I can see I have 2 NaCl, so 2 salt molecules or 2 salt compounds here. So the way I'm going to write those out is I'm going to write out the whole molecule. So this would be NaCl plus NaCl because there are that 2 coefficient applies to everything after it. So then the number of atoms of each of those, so I have, when I look at Na, there are 2 of those. And when I look at the chlorine, Cl, there are also 2 of those. So when I look at that formula, there's a total of 4 atoms that make up that entire 2 NaCl. Okay, let's go ahead and do the next one. So the next one, I'm gonna write out the entire molecule, each molecule. So there's a 3 in front of it, so I need to write 3 of these. Okay, and then I need to count the number of each of those. So there are 3 H2s, so that's going to be 6. And then there are 3 O2s. So my oxygen, there's going to be a total of 6 of those. So total atoms then would be 12 for those. Okay. So again, probably want to pause it right now. Go ahead and work through part 2 examples here. And then when you get done, check your answers down at the bottom. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the guided practice part 3 then. So now you can see I have my a full equation. I have my reactants here at the beginning, so those can be my reactants. And then my products are going to be what comes out of that. So let's go ahead and start listing our reactant molecules. So again, I have that 2 in front of it. So that applies to everything after it. So that would be like HGO added to HGO. And my products would be, again, that 2 applies to the HG. So that's like HG added to HG. And then there is the oxygen there. And there are 2 of those. So remember, when we talk about this, we want to make sure that the products equal the reactant. So the reactant, the same numbers have to be, they have to be the same number on each side. And I can see here that that's what's going on. So in my HG, there are 2 of those over here. My oxygen, there are 2 of those over here. And the same thing on my product side. HG, there are 2. And my oxygen, there are 2. Now, I'm not asking you to double check that right now, but that's kind of a good idea to start thinking about that when we look at the number of molecules that are on the reactant side and the number of molecules that are on the product side. So let's go ahead and do this next example. So this next one, that 3 only applies, so it applies to the hydrogen, but nothing after that plus sign. So that's, would be like H2 added to H2 added to H2 added to N2. So that does that 3 in the hydrogen there in this reactant does not apply to the nitrogen there because of that plus sign. That plus sign kind of stops that from applying to all of that. So if I want to do like I did in the previous example and count the total number on the reactant side, my hydrogens are going to be 6 and my nitrogens are going to be 2. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look then on the product side. On the product side, you can see that nitrogen and that hydrogen have now combined. And so that would be, NH3 added to NH3. So to kind of do that second step, then, if I count those atoms, my hydrogens are still 6, and my nitrogens are now 2. They've just kind of rearranged themselves into different molecules, and that's how I know it's a chemical reaction, is those atoms have rearranged themselves. And so that then is kind of bringing all of this together. So, counting atoms of, several different molecules and kind of totaling those on each side to see if they're balanced or not balanced. Okay, so, and again, at the bottom of the page here, I put a link where you can go and check your answers. And then if you're really feeling up for it, I put some really challenging ones in there. You can go ahead and do those as well to really challenge yourself. So thank you so much. As always, if you have any questions, please just let me know.